Hi, folks. Welcome to Crisis Intervention, or CRIS 1342. This is week one. So I created this slideshow a while ago. So a lot of this has already been repeated and talked about in the first section, which was our welcome section. But sometimes it's good to reiterate important information. That being said, I want to remind everyone that I am doing this at home and I have an 8 and 6-year-old running around, so there may be interruptions in the recording at any given time, and I apologize if you hear them. So, without further ado, the introductions, mine, and I would hope to see some of you participating in doing the introductions, where and how to find me virtually, our course outline, which I will jump to, our evaluation criteria, including the different assignments, in-process activities, discussions, journals, and tests that are the focus of this course, kind of what our weekly schedule and our lessons look like, and general housekeeping stuff. So again, my name is Melissa Dodson. I am your professor for this time. This is a picture of myself and my partner Jeff from last summer. My work in teaching history, again, I have taught at Durham College since the winter of 2016. I have been with Fleming College since 2019. Previously, I worked for the Ministry of the Attorney General, and I was a court reporter. And if you don't know what those are, if you've ever seen a court TV show, the people sitting at those tiny typewriters, those are stenographers. The new version is a court reporter. So I sat at a desk in a courtroom recording proceedings. I worked at all three levels of court: Ontario Court of Justice, Superior Court of Justice, and Ontario Court of Appeal when I did my transcript protection. And I also worked in all different types of courts. So I've been in civil, criminal, divisional courts, everything from bail hearings all the way up to murder charges, to divorce cases, to child custody hearings, and all of that in between. I'm still actively an authorized court transcriptionist. That's what I do when I'm not teaching. So I type and I type and I type. And I was a bookkeeper with the ministry at the Oshawa Durham Courthouse, where I was in charge of a $2 million trust account for the courthouse. I am a mom. I have two young boys. Logan, who you met in my introduction video, is 8. Dylan is 6. And our fur baby Taxi is 5. I'm also one of 2 nonviolent crisis intervention trainers for Durham College. I work with primarily the first responders, so the police, all those folks, ambulance, fire, teaching them verbal intervention and physical disengagement skills. And I also do that kind of training for first responders. Actually, pretty much every program at Fleming College has nonviolent crisis intervention. It's one of their mandatory trainings or certifications before they're allowed out in the field. Oh, and I also teach in the School of Interdisciplinary Studies as well as the School of Justice at Durham College. My education and training is there again, authorized court transcriptionist. I have many connections in emergency services across Ontario because of my kind of weird, random, eclectic resume. Some more fun facts about me. I used to be a former Pilates and yoga instructor, BCE, before children existed, as I like to say. I own my own yoga studio in Oshawa for 3 years. I live in Curtis. Jeff is in construction, and I love to travel. Favorite place I've been to so far has to be Costa Rica. I enjoy hiking, kayaking, and photography, and I'm really starting to get into these paint night things at home. Yes, I am a lame old lady or mother doing that, but whatever floats your boat in these times, you gotta do. How do you contact me? For all college-related inquiries, you need to contact me via the Durham College email, and I'm going to try and put it on the homepage as well. So it's melissa.dodson, D-O-D-S-O-N, not Dobson, Dodson, at durhamcollege.ca. I have no office hours per se because you can't meet me in person still. But I am doing a virtual classroom Q&A, so just a very informal question and answer session. It is not mandatory, every Monday at 1 p.m. This course is asynchronous, meaning there will be no times when I'm requiring you to sit down at your computer. That is, I think, an unfair expectation given our realities right now and given what a lot of our home environments look like. So I don't expect you to be on the computer Mondays at 1, but if you do have questions for me, this is the time where I will make myself available. Other than that, I do have a 24 to 48 hour turnaround policy. It just depends on how busy I am with my other jobs. But other than that, I hope to and endeavor to get back to you guys in a very fair and prompt manner. So the things you need to know in an overview of our course. So uh, our course outline is available on the DC site under the overview tab. If you do not read it, it is not an excuse for not knowing it. It's your responsibility. That's the one thing that they really want you to do. Get to know that course outline because it's basically the college's contract to what is going to be taught and what your expectations of the course are. So it outlines things like assessments, what the planned topics are going to be. There's an addendum, which I will be posting as soon as I get back. And I do plan on putting it under week 1 because we've had to compress the spring summer session from 14 weeks down to 12. And at the same time, we're now online only. The addendum is created to be a companion to the course outline to kind of cover that gap that we've obviously had. If you look at the course outline, there's some things that were meant to be in person. We can't meet those right now with the limitations during the COVID crisis. So the addendum explains how we're going to make those up. The course learning outcomes and the essential employability skills outcomes, those are why you're taking this course. It explains what the purpose of this course is and how it applies or becomes applicable to the work that we know you folks are interested in, and that's primarily emergency management and call center communication. Sorry, I'm tripping on my own tongue today. So things specific to this group are going to be in that addendum, and I will put it out in an announcement when I get there. And if this microphone is picking up my kids in the back, they both do jiu-jitsu and are currently practicing on each other, it sounds like. So in that course outline, it's going to go over general college policies. So the technology stuff is obviously not applicable right now, but the academic policies and the academic honesty are the ones that are very important to become familiar with. In terms of academic honesty, plagiarism is one of the things that the college takes very seriously, and the consequences of being involved in a plagiarism action can result in you actually being expelled from the school. General policies in terms of late or absences, excused delays, writing and test assignments are all found in that course outline. So if you have a question on dates, times, or topics, your best bet is to check your course outline first. So I will jump over to that course outline in a little bit, but if this is one of your first semesters in college, or if you didn't know about the service, I really want to reiterate that Durham strives to be very inclusive. And so if you were a high school student that had an IEP or something similar at a different institution, then you could qualify at Durham for accommodation as well. Or if you've got a DC Access plan, I would like you to email it to me. It says, please see me in person. I just want to double check that I have it or that it is on its way. So if you just want to shoot me a quick email saying, hey, I have an access plan, did you receive it? I will respond in kind. And if you don't have one and don't know what I'm talking about, it might not be applicable to you. Okay. Good news, there are no mandatory textbooks for this course. I like it when we try and keep costs down for students, and this is one way we've done that. Any reading and information are going to be posted on this DC Connect site, so don't worry about any textbooks. We're not adopting them for this version of the course. The first couple of weeks are going to seem a little chaotic until you get used to the structure of the actual course here. I had developed this over the winter with one of my teaching partners, I should say, Nicole Harding. And so we took that format and it was very successful and applied it to this iteration of the course as well. If anyone has problems with the accessibility or the general layout or are confused about things, I suggest that you kind of flip around a couple different weeks just to see how kind of things vary from week to week. But then I can also answer any questions if there's anything outstanding, like maybe you still don't understand where certain information is going to be found. Feel free to reach out to me. I always say that the only dumb question is the one that you don't ask. Okay, so my go-to resources, the ones that I am using right now, are ones that are accessible normally in the bookstore, but again, they're not requirements. But if you're wondering where I'm getting my information from, this is primarily where they come from. So the big one is A Guide to Crisis Intervention. It's the 6th edition by Dr. Christy Canal. It is the primary kind of go-to resource for this course. So anything that looks like a definition has pretty much come from her. I credit where I can, and I always try to add a resource page at the end to make sure that you understand where the information comes from, and that's also part of that academic integrity. So if the slides aren't mine, which many of these in this course actually are not mine, I did not author them, I am going through to try and add more pertinent information and to make sure that the resources are cited properly. So if you do notice that they're missing right now, rest assured I'm going through it. The other one that you're going to see a lot of is James and Gilliland. That was the crisis intervention strategies. That one tends to be very Americanized, and so we don't tend to adopt a lot of the information in terms of statistics from there, but it still has some very good base information that I will be presenting to you. The other one that comes out is Elements of Crisis Intervention, the 3rd edition by Greenstone and Levitin. And again, it's more subtle. It's not popping up as much as some of the other resources, but it is one that we do use, so you will see it credited throughout. Your attitude determines the direction. I want to reiterate that this is a safe learning environment. We're going to be discussing some very sensitive topics. These topics can be ones that are uncomfortable for some of us. It might be stuff that you're not used to talking about or not familiar with. Some of you may share your experiences. It's not a requirement. Here, let me grab my tea. It's not a requirement. I'll be sharing some of my own experiences. I was involved in a very large motor vehicle accident in 2003, and I will talk about that and what happened from there in terms of trauma and trauma responses. But I really want to make everyone know that this is a safe sharing space, and what is said here is not to be repeated elsewhere. Okay, so you're going to see these throughout a lot of lectures on here. They're called perception checks. So I want you to actually stop this video or take a minute to pause, maybe grab a sip of your own tea if you've got some in front of you, and just check. Do you understand what I've just said? Is there anything that I can make clearer for you? Do you have any questions or concerns about what you have just learned? If you're pretty comfortable, then you can move ahead. And if not, what I would always encourage you to do is stop, take kind of assessment or take a moment to figure out what is missing, what is that piece that's missing from that whole iteration or that whole idea. Either find it yourself, and if you're still stuck, email me and we'll talk. Oh, sorry, I knew it was gonna. Oh no, I'm going backwards. This is why you do these things once without actually talking. Okay, affirmations of learning, which are the otherwise known as our evaluation criteria. So the changes from the original course outline is that there's more opportunities to show your knowledge versus just a couple of tests and assignments. So if you go to the assignment and evaluation tab on the website, you're going to see that there's, I think, 4 subheadings right now. There's the discussions, there's the reflective journals, there's your final project, and there should be the in process. So we'll talk about those and the due dates and the details and where to find those. I'm actually going to skip over to those in a second. Let me see if I can get out of my page here and show. There we go. Okay. So you should be seeing my DC Connect screen right now. What you'll see here, and it looks much bigger, and there's a lot more stuff on mine because I'm trying to build the course and add things as they're pertinent. I am clicking on the content section of our website, and you'll see this about 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th tab down says assignments and evaluation. So right at the top, what I've done is I've added all of the due dates. for everything that's going to happen in this course. And then if you continue down, you'll see reflective journals, there's general requirements, and then you'll see the actual topics that you're going to be writing to me on, okay? The same thing goes with the discussion. I want to really reiterate that there are two discussions that are graded, and then there are two that are general forums. The ones that are graded are the ones that count for the 5% each. So these are the ones that you really want to focus on. The general discussion forums are where you're going to put things like your student introduction. I've also created something called the mini threads. The mini threads are non-mandatory discussions that kind of relate to the weekly readings, and you're free to answer or post things in there or answer to your friends. It is not for marks. What it will do, though, is just kind of compound your learning and reassess and reaffirm what you have already learned. Last is the in-process activities. These are actually meant to be more fun and reflective. I didn't want to give you too much that's too heavy. So the first thing is an active listening assessment. How well do you active listen? And the second is a self-care inventory. So what do I do? And maybe it'll give you some ideas on how you can take better care of yourself. The other section that you're going to want to pay attention to under the activities tab is under quizzes. You're going to notice here, this is where our 2 quizzes and final test are. There's a quiz 1 is due on June 14th. Quiz 2 is July 19th, and your final test has to be submitted before August the 9th. We'll talk about kind of what criteria relates to which quiz, what to expect, the breakdowns and that sort of thing going forward. Next week, I'll be introducing the quizzes and the tests in a little more detail. So you should have already checked out this webpage. There's the welcome start here, the course outline, the course overview and schedule, where there's a printable copy of this. SALS, again, is your Student Academic Learning Services. They are available for you folks, even in this online capacity. They will help you either get yourself organized. They do have the one-on-one tutoring, the peer coaching, all of that is still available in this online environment. You're going to go down after and check out week 1, Introduction in the History of Crisis Intervention, and you're going to see that there's a couple things up here. Now, usually you're going to, if you were me and I was looking at this, I would panic. There's a whole bunch of things here, but this course introduction is what I'm doing right now. This is our first actual lecture. So I'm going to actually, it'll say week 1, Crisis and Crisis Intervention, so those will be our lectures. And then there's other assorted material underneath that's going to cover things that weren't covered in the actual lecture. So this Word document is literally, I think, 2 pages. It's the characteristics of a good crisis intervener. And this glossary of terms for crisis intervention is one that I would print off and kind of keep handy because it has vocabulary and terminology in it that's going to help you throughout the course and is very pertinent for your tests and quizzes. The other Word document is the Elements of Crisis. I think that one's a total of 4 pages. And finally, in the bottom section, you're going to see something called work assigned this week. So it's not due this week, but it's stuff that I will be talking about. So when I go through the lecture in a little bit, I'll be talking about what exactly you have to do for your discussion topic number 1, as well as what reflective journal number 1 is going to look like. So that's kind of how you're going to navigate this course. I always work from the top down. So make sure that you're paying attention to that. Getting back to the slideshow, you're going to see the breakdown for the marks here when they are. This should say quiz 1 and quiz 2. I don't know why I have it as test, but in-process activities, there's the 2 of them. They are worth 10%. Your final assignment, which can be individual or group, is worth 15 in total. Your 2 online discussions are 5% each for a total of 10%. There are 4 reflective journals at 5% each, coming to the total of 20%. Quiz 1 and Quiz 2 are 10% each, and your final test is actually 25%. I'm just noticing that. So by the time you listen to this, I should have that fixed. So it's 25, not 55%. That would be scary. So again, the in-process activities are ones that you can do at any time pretty much. But they must be submitted before the due dates, the deadlines to receive their marks. Oh man. Your reflective journals are an individual activity. Only you and I are going to see this, so keep that in mind. It's private between me and you. The topics are provided with due dates. And remember, this is not your teen journal. This is a college-level writing assignment, so I'm looking for reflection. The rubrics for all of these things, like the journals, I'm going to pop back over. I hate jumping back and forth between slides or screens, but that's just going to happen. If you want to see any of the rubrics, you can go back into the assignments and the evaluations, and I've left the rubrics in here as well. So you just click on them and you can see kind of what I'm looking for in terms of journals. This is what I'm looking for. Okay, and it's scored out of 16. Things like required components. Did you talk about the actual topic? What's the depth of how much you went into that topic? What is your critical analysis and response? What did you do? What did you learn from it? And then writing mechanics. Okay. Oh, there's the framework right there. Online discussions are both individual and class. Everyone can see what you post, but I'm going to allow certain things to be anonymous. Specific topics to the content are covered. So the 2 mandatory discussion posts. One discusses appropriate responses to a child calling kids help phone, and the other one talks about media perceptions of death, dying, and grief. So those rubrics, again, are available on the website, and I encourage you to look at them when you're answering so that you know that you're hitting the criteria for points or marks. Groups and crisis intervention. You'll be doing a final project either individually or in a group. So I'll introduce it now. This is going to be a disaster review. So I'm going to ask you to pick any major disaster, man-made or natural, and you'll understand what I mean by week 4. And you're going to talk about it in terms of a crisis intervention model and things that could have or should have or didn't happen afterwards. I would like things that are maybe older than 6 months. I recognize that we've just had that mass shooting in Nova Scotia and that the number of casualties is astronomical in terms of mass casualty events in Canada. But because it is so recent, we don't know what the long-term fallout is going to be. I would encourage people to pick things that have happened at least 6 months ago. You'll need to research and pull information together. So this will be using citations. You need to make sure that they're in the APA citation format. You need to make sure that if you're working in a group that you make it cohesive. I will go over this a lot more next week, but if you choose to work in a group, it can be no more than a group of 3. I'll create, there's a group section that's been created on DC Connect, and you need to submit a group contract. So that, again, I'll go into next week. I grade group work 2 ways, as a whole and individually. So what happens is I try to see how you folks are doing throughout. And if I'm getting wind of any concerns, or if people aren't pulling their weight, or if all of a sudden the person is no longer in a group, that's taken into consideration as well. Peer evaluations will come into effect if you choose to work in a group for final project. Weekly lesson delivery. I'll be going through the topic breakdown. We'll be doing different activities. There's readings, which are the lectures on here, the assignments and due dates. I'm going to make sure I review and recap stuff from the previous week. I'll talk about things in the news that are pertinent. So again, the Nova Scotia mass shooting would be something that will make its way into this course. Topics are in chunks followed by activities. So I try and break it up so that you folks have time to either do the discussions or go look at video and audio clips to kind of enhance your learning, but also to break up having to listen to me. There's optional discussion posts. So you'll see those under like weekly discussions, it's called, on the discussion section. They'll vary from week to week, and it provides you an opportunity for feedback and helps to verify your understanding of the topic overall. For today's lesson, we're going to be talking about what is crisis intervention. So again, if you go to that discussion, the non-mandatory section, there is a discussion topic at the bottom called what is crisis intervention. I'd like you to find what crisis intervention means to you. I want you to talk about various components or topics that could or would encompass a crisis intervention course. What do you expect to see in the coming weeks? What topics do you want to learn or should be included in this class? I can also add things if we want. I can shift things around a little, that power a bit. Oh, sorry, that's my kids. But the course is what's written down, but we do have the ability to bring in different ideas and materials. In the coming weeks, some of the topics we're going to be covering are types of crisis, the history of crisis intervention, confidentiality, ethics and crisis intervention, self-care and crisis intervention, so ideas, tips, intervention models. We'll be focusing specifically on the ABC model of crisis intervention, but we will touch on the others. We'll talk about your communication skills. We're going to be touching on topics of death, dying, and grief, suicide, disasters, traumatic events. We're going to be talking about homicide, psychosis, and many other topics in the coming weeks. So your homework is to check out DC Connect and get comfortable with it. I want you to complete any of the readings or activities under week 1. I want you to look at the announcements for reminders, and I will see you in the next topic.